Let's talk about adding individual page sections, and these are the base structural component of your website. So adding a new section, you can do that here. You can select the amount of columns that you want. So let's do 2 and 2. So here's your new page section. Let's go to the actual settings aspect of your page section and discuss everything. So stretching the section will stretch the actual section width to be full screen. So as you can see here, it's a full screen section. Stretching the content width to full width will make it full width content. If it's boxed content, the content the section might stretch all the way, which means the background will stretch from one side of the page to the other, but the content will be pushed in around 50 px. So if you want full width everything, select full width. We stay typically with boxed, and we don't usually stretch the section. Columns gap. This is basically the gap between your columns. So here's one column, here's another column, columns gap. Height of the section. This is really important, especially if you're building headers. So you can fit it to a hero. So you can fit it to a screen. And then if you want like a full width hero section, stretch it full width. Column position. Position the middle, bottom position, top position, or stretch, which is typically what we'll do. Vertical align, align the actual content in the columns. So middle, space between will push space between, so you'll have something on the bottom, something on the top, something in the middle if you had 3 elements. Overflow. Overflow can be hidden or default. Default will show content that overflows out of the page. Structure, you can change the structure here. You have 2 columns, 33, 66, 50, 50, stuff like that. Styling your actual column, you can change the background. Styling the actual section, you can change the background of the section individually. You can add a gradient background, you can add a video background, you can add a slideshow. Typically what we do is an image background. So here's an example image for our background. Throw it in there. There's your image background. Remember, we have it set to full height, full width, so this image will show on the entire page. Something to keep in mind is if your image isn't big enough, then it will repeat like this. As you can see, here's the computer, here's the computer. This image is repeating. What we like doing is cover. It will make the image size to the actual screen. We'll turn off the repeat. Attachment, you can do fixed attachment, which means when you scroll, the image stays. If you do scroll, the image will scroll. The position, you can change top, center, and really anywhere you want to go. Typically we'll do center, so the image is centered on the screen. It scrolls with the screen. It does not repeat, and it covers the screen, like so. You get one image on the entire screen. Scrolling effects, typically parallax, vertical scroll, that's what we'll do. You can do horizontal scroll, it's like sideways parallax. Nobody really uses that. Transparency, make the image fade out as you scroll, make the image blur out as you scroll, make the image grow bigger as you scroll. Honestly, we only stick with vertical scroll. Everything else is kind of quirky and detracts from the user experience. You can do also mouse effects, where you do a mouse track. You move your mouse, the image moves opposite to that. That's also like another quirky feature, so we won't go for that usually. So you can also overlay over the background, like a color, and we'll use this feature actually very often. So if we have a theme color, we'll overlay that theme color. It's set to be 50% opaque by default. You can increase it, decrease it, go however you want. You can also add a gradient. Your border radius is basically your border. The radius is rounding of the corners. So if we did a 10 radius border, it won't do anything because it's a section. But if we then go ahead and add a border, you can see up top that there is a curve, and we can actually increase that curve. But as you see, it's a section, so border radius doesn't work. You don't really want to play around with borders on sections. When we get to columns, that's going to be more important. Shape divider, something to separate the page, the section from the next section. So we really like this like tilt, and basically it will divide it will add a neat transition to this. Tilt opacity is pretty cool too. You see this a lot in startup websites or software as a service websites. Then you can set the default color of the text in the section. We don't really do this. We'll do this through CSS. Under advanced, margin will push columns in. I meant margin will add spacing between the section. Padding will push columns in, like so. Z-index if you're layering individual sections. So if you want this section to go on top of a section below it, your Z-index would be, say, 2, and the section below its Z-index would be 1. You can add a custom CSS ID, custom CSS classes. We like adding IDs because you can then add anchor links to scroll to them. So here's your hero ID. So if you went here, if say this was the home page, you did hero, it would scroll to that section. Motion effects, you can have it fade in. We typically leave motion effects like that to the actual columns. You can also make it sticky, but as a section, you shouldn't really be messing around with that. You can hide this section on desktop, so you can add device-specific sections, which is pretty cool. This is pretty advanced, and then if you want to add custom CSS, you can do that too. So I hope that gave you a good overview of the tools that you get with a individual column and how to use them.